everybody. I'm Ocean Robbins. So excited that in about 15 minutes, we are going to begin our broadcast of episode 1 of the 2025 Food Revolution Summit. You are one of several 100,000 people who are joining in this summit, and together we are taking a stand for healthy, ethical, sustainable food for all. We'll be starting the broadcast of episode 1 at the top of the hour, but right now thousands and thousands of people are already gathering. So I want to take this moment to welcome you and to let you know, if you care about food, if you care about health, or if you want to prevent illness, or if you want to thrive in life, you're in the right place. If you want to make the healthiest possible choices that you can, even in the midst of all the challenges going on in the world right now, you're in the right place. If you want a healthy body and a healthy planet, you're in the right place. If you're interested in a smarter immune system, better sleep, more energy, healthier skin, better digestion, or if you want to prevent Alzheimer's or cancer or cardiovascular disease or type 2 diabetes or any of the other major chronic health challenges of our times, you are in the right place. And if you want to optimize your health and you want to create the conditions for yourself and your family to survive and to thrive, if you want to add years to your life and life to your years, you're in the right place. We're going to officially start episode 1 of the 2025 Food Revolution Summit in about 13 minutes, and I am Ocean Robbins welcoming you here. I hope that what you find in this summit comforts and heartens and inspires you. I hope that it supports you in bringing your food choices into alignment with what you want for your life and for your world. As we go through this summit, please post and engage in the comments section on the broadcast page. You will see lots and lots of comments already pouring in from people all over the world. You can introduce yourself and say hi and where you're from. What are you hoping to get out of this summit? And as we go along, you can share your top takeaways, your aha moments, your breakthroughs. You can appreciate other people's comments and respond to them as well. And you can ask questions. If there are questions you are hoping to get answered here, things you want to learn, things that don't make sense to you, go ahead and share. We're here to support. And after every broadcast, I'll be on live to answer questions that have come up during that day's broadcast, so you can get some of the latest insights and breakthroughs and keep deepening your learning journey. Wendy said, so excited to hear and learn more. I've been following Ocean and most of these doctors since 2017, when I changed my diet and lost inflammation due to diverticulitis. Love learning more and more on the healing powers of the natural foods on our loving earth. Thank you, Wendy. I love learning more and more too, and there is always more to learn. You know, I have been immersed in this stuff my entire life. And this year, doing this year's interviews, I learned so much more. The experts in this summit are on the front lines of the learning journey. There are new studies coming out all the time with breakthroughs and understanding about food and health and what it all means and how our body responds to nutrients and how we can maximize bioavailability and how we can maximize longevity and so much more. So I'm so glad you are here. I'm glad that you've gotten these benefits since you started learning and engaging, and we are just excited to be on the journey with you. Susan said, the summit is super motivational to me. I'm encouraging my friends to sign up also, especially the ones with major medical challenges that are weighing them down mentally and spiritually. Thank you, Susan. You know, there's an old saying that a person with their health has 1,000 dreams. A person without it's only got one dream, which is to get their health back. When you don't have your health, recovering it can become the most important thing, if not the only thing that seems to matter in your life. So we want you to have 1,000 dreams. We want your friends and your loved ones to have 1,000 dreams. And I'm hoping that this summit can be of support to so many people. Of course, everyone participating, but also I want to invite you to think about anyone you want to invite to join in this experience, because this could be a landmark moment in their lives. So thank you, Susan, for spreading the word, and thank you to everybody who is spreading the word, telling your friends, inviting them to join in. Of course, you can also think about what you're learning as you go through the summit, take notes or get the empowerment package so you can access it all later, and then share what you're learning with your loved ones in that way as well. Maxine said, "Hi, Ocean and team. I'm back this year to catch up on the latest news and info to inform the year to come. You were kind enough to gift me the empowerment package last year, which was fantastic and helped me on my journey no end. I'm in a much better place this year in every way, and I've purchased this year's package too, as I got so much additional information and support from it." Maxine, thank you so much for sharing. We are so glad you're here. I'm so glad we were able to support you and invest in you and your health and well-being last year, and that you're putting it to good use and that you're seeing the benefits. And thank you for supporting our mission. It means a lot to us. Tina said, "Hello from Rockland, California. First time attending this summit and looking forward to learning a lot. I have type 2 diabetes, especially interested in how to cook more plant-based." Tina, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Sorry you're struggling with type 2 diabetes. You are going to learn a lot in this summit. And the really good news is that type 2 diabetes is often reversible. A1C levels can come down, blood sugar can come into balance when we eat the right foods. But a lot of people have got very bad, wrong ideas about type 2 diabetes and how food interacts with it. They see the blood sugar levels go up when they eat carbohydrates, so then they just steer clear of carbohydrates, end up eating a lot more fat in many cases, and it turns out that fat can clog the pathways and the insulin receptor cells so that insulin isn't able to do its job as well, which means the body has to produce more of it, which accelerates the diabetes cycle. So it's kind of like if you were a driver and you keep getting speeding tickets, not eating carbs is like staying off the road and not driving. But what we actually want to help you do is have your body be able to drive safely, to move safely, to function well. And the optimal way to do that is not by avoiding carbs, but rather by eating a healthy diet that helps your body to process insulin effectively and use it effectively, increasing insulin sensitivity. And a key part of that relates to consuming plenty of fiber, which is a carbohydrate technically, and not getting excessive saturated fat. You're going to learn a lot more in this summit about all of this, and I'm just so glad you are here. You are in the right place. So welcome. So glad you found us. Look forward to sharing this journey with you. Fauzi said, "Many thanks, Ocean, for hosting the episode 1 of the 2025, did I say that right? The 2025 Food Revolution Summit. I hope that this year one can learn more and more, enhance our knowledge of which food is good or not good for our health, the well-being of animals, and last but not least, the health of our planet Earth. I'm really very excited to start this year's docuseries, and I'd like to send my gratitude to the Food Revolution team and the 45 experts dedicated to broadening our knowledge. I'd like to thank them for their priceless and practical tips and advice. Since 2024, with the discovery of Food Revolution Network, I've learned a lot of things. I'm sending warm greetings from South France, where I live." Thank you so much, Fauzi. And I bet it is warm in the south of France. We are sending you warm greetings as well. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you joined us last year and learned a lot that's been of value in your life. And yes, I am grateful too to the 45 experts in this summit. They are brilliant, and they spend their lives at the forefront of knowledge and research. And we now get to harvest their decades of hard-earned wisdom, which itself is culled from tens of thousands of studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals, combined with clinical practice and deep dive knowledge. We get to bring all of that together into these priceless and powerful episodes. And each day of this summit, you'll see another episode broadcast right here on this page. And those episodes consist of clips from those different interviews, combined with some of our own commentary and weaving of it all together into a powerful little movie of sorts. And in addition, every day of this summit, in case you all don't know, we have 3 more expert interviews, full expert interviews available. After the day's broadcast, you can see them if you want to, and you can go deeper with 3 of the experts featured in that day's theme. So today, for example, it's Dr. Gardner, Dr. Greger, and Dr. Clapper, I believe, are our featured experts of the day. So those are available throughout the summit, and we'll, over the course of the journey, be able to broadcast 24 of those expert interviews. With the empowerment package, you get lifetime access to all 45 of them, plus transcripts and source links to studies cited, as well as, of course, all the episodes and a lot more. Again, Fauzi, thank you so much for being on this journey with us. Natalie said, hi from Montreal, Canada. I also bought the package as sometimes life is hectic and I'm willing to do all my best to not age like my parents have. Natalie, thank you for being here and for investing in our mission and helping us to carry on in this critical work. And I hope you're going to learn a lot here. And today's episode is going to be particularly great if you're thinking about longevity and aging, because that is going to be our focus in episode 1, which will be starting in about 5 minutes. Nina said, I'm currently in the UK, originally Bulgaria. I'm a nurse. I want to become healthy so I can teach my patients to become healthy too. Awesome, Nina. Thank you for being here. There are a lot of healthcare professionals attending this summit, and you're all going to learn so much that can help you support your patients and the people in your life. George said, I'm in my 80s and I've watched FRN for many years, always picking up new tips on maintaining health. Awesome, George. I'm so glad you are here, and you are going to learn a lot here in this summit. Georgia said, my husband is 72 and has Parkinson's disease, type 2 diabetes, and high blood pressure. He's taking medications for all of them. I'm wanting to get him to eat more whole food, plant-based meals, so hopefully his type 2 diabetes will be controlled better. His A1C was 8.5 a few months ago. Do you think that if he started eating more whole foods, plant-based meals, his A1C would go down to a more normal level? Well, Georgia, thank you for asking, and I want to give you the news that there is a lot of hope here. Studies show that a whole food, plant-based diet can do wonders for people with type 2 diabetes. In fact, research has found that eating this way can help lower blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, and in many cases bring A1C levels down significantly, sometimes to the point where people are able to reduce or eliminate their need for diabetes medications. Of course, always in partnership with a healthcare provider. Since your husband is dealing with Parkinson's and high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes, shifting towards more plant-based meals could bring a multitude of benefits. Plant-powered foods are rich in fiber and antioxidants and phytonutrients that can help bring down inflammation and support heart health and stabilize blood sugar. Every single step counts, every single bite counts, and even adding a few more vegetables or legumes or whole grains or nuts can make a difference. I always suggest working with a healthcare provider when you're dealing with health conditions, and of course nothing we say here is medical advice, but that said, you're going to learn a lot here. So blessings to you and to your husband, and lots of love to you in the journey. You are in the right place. Everybody, if you just joined us, I'm Ocean Robbins welcoming you, and we're going to start our broadcast of episode 1 of the Food Revolution Summit at the top of the hour in just a couple of minutes. People are gathering here from all over the world, and many are already posting in the comment section on the broadcast page. As we go through the day, you can do that too. You know, in the face of war and violence between nations and economic instability and epidemic rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease and cancer, in the face of environmental problems and so many other issues in the world, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed. I mean, some of the problems that we face can seem insurmountable, and it can be easy to struggle to find hope. A lot of people are really wondering, can we look forward to leaving this world better for our children and our grandchildren? Well, I'm going to tell you what I believe. I say yes. I say there is immense hope. And I say that hope isn't so much a noun as a verb. It's an action that we live from. And when it comes to food, you very literally carry the keys to shaping your destiny. In this summit, you're going to find out how you can leverage the incredible power of the food on your plate to create the life and the world that you want. You can be a part of the solution. You can stand for hope in your body and on your planet. We're going to begin episode 1 of the Food Revolution Summit in about a minute here. Today, our topic is embracing vitality at every stage of life, unlocking the secrets to thriving across the decades. We'll explore how to thrive through the journey, and you're going to discover science-backed habits that can help you stay strong and vibrant and rich in vitality at every age. We'll explore what the world's healthiest communities have in common, dig into the surprising truths behind the blue zones, and look at some of the latest and most important studies on longevity. From shifting nutritional needs to topics like eyesight and menopause and sex drive and cognitive health, we're going to look at the key foods and lifestyle practices that can help you live longer and feel better. And I want to say again right now, you are part of a powerful community of kindred spirits on this journey together. Let's make it a supportive, non-judgmental community, a safe space for everyone to be exactly who they are and to speak their truth and their journey and their vulnerability and be held in love. Now, it looks like it's almost time for us to get started with episode 1. As we go through each episode of this summit, anytime you hear something you especially like, I want to invite you to go ahead and capture it in the comment section on the broadcast page so others can see it too. Here we go.
The food revolution is ultra important.
The food revolution is an opportunity to change your life for the better.
What if food could be your medicine?
Learn how to eat to live a longer life.
If you want longevity, then focus on life-giving nutrition.
The food revolution is happiness.
The food revolution is vital for human health and the planet.
What if food could change everything?
What if food could reduce your risk of cancer?
What if your food choices could shape the future?
Now is the time for change.
Say yes to the change you want to see.
Now is the time to take charge of your life.
Let's do this.
Let's do this.
It's time for a food revolution.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now.
The food revolution starts now, baby.
We're all gonna die, whether it's in 10 minutes or in 10 decades. Death is an inevitable fact of life. But when it comes to how long you live, and perhaps even more importantly, how well you live, you have more choice than you've probably ever imagined.
Most people think that with every passing year, they will experience less mobility and more pain. Most people think that heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and dementia are just inevitable consequences of getting older. But thankfully, you are not most people. And when you put what you're about to learn into action, and when you truly give your body the nourishment it needs to thrive, something very different and potentially very wonderful is possible.
I'm Ocean Robbins.
And I'm Nicole D'Andrea Russer.
Welcome to the Food Revolution Summit. I want to start this summit on a personal note. For the past 14 years, I've had the honor of hosting the Food Revolution Summit alongside my dad and my dear friend, John Robbins, an inspiration to millions and a catalyst for the modern food revolution movement. My dad, who overcame childhood polio to become a marathon runner and a triathlete, has shown us the power of a healthy lifestyle. Yet almost 70 years after he contracted polio, he developed post-polio syndrome. It's a condition that usually appears 15 to 30 years after the initial illness. Though his active life granted him many vibrant years, PPS has recently forced him to step back. I am forever grateful for his legacy of love and health and for passing the torch to me, Nicole, and all of you. To anyone facing pain or fear or loss, know that we're here to support you and help you change what you can while also bringing serenity to what you cannot.
John's life has been an inspiration to me. His resilience, brilliance, and deep connection to the planet, people, and animals have shaped a legacy that lives on in all of our hearts. I'm incredibly honored, humbled, and moved to carry this mission forward alongside Ocean. John's legacy is one of vitality and empowerment, reminding us that the choices we make every single day matter. Sometimes, as you'll see in this summit, you can change a whole lot more than you may ever have imagined. In fact, it's possible to prevent, and in some cases reverse, most of the biggest killers of our times, including cardiovascular disease, stroke, cancer, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and also debilitating conditions like chronic fatigue, IBS, IBD, arthritis, chronic inflammation, depression, anxiety, and many, many other ailments. And not only that, but when you give your body the right fuel, you don't just get sick less and die later, you also live healthier and feel more vibrant and more alive.
And that really, I think, is the core point here. Not adding more time spent in a nursing home or in chronic pain, but adding more vitality, more love, more joy to your life. So, what kind of a future do you want to look forward to?
When I envision the future, I think of a cognitively sharp mind, an agile body, some deep social connection, awakening with purpose and a plan today. And I think the key to aging is to recognize that that plan of aging has already started. So everything you're doing today, your choices are setting the stage for that future. So the idea of a slow path toward frailty and the fracture that kills you needs to just be completely reworked.
My vision for aging is that you can combine wisdom and life experience with vitality. We all have a time at which it's our time to leave this earth. But what I would love for everybody to experience is as much vitality in their bodies as they can before that time comes. And using simple health habits, we can do that. We're able to, on a cellular level, reverse or halt that aging process in a way that people sometimes have no clue about.
I think that we have aging all wrong, and we have this perception that as you get older, you should be getting worse. I actually think as you get older, you can get better, and you can learn more about yourself, learn more about your health, learn more about what the best things are for you to do for longevity.
The benefits of a healthy plant-based diet and a healthy diet and lifestyle where we take care of ourselves, where we don't smoke, where we abstain from or minimize alcohol, where we exercise regularly, where we maintain a healthy body weight. The benefits are huge. 10 to 14 extra healthy years on this earth. 10 to 14 extra years of health span. Who doesn't want that? 10 extra years of health in your lifespan. That could be the difference between seeing your grandchildren starting in, primary school or kindergarten and being there when they graduate university or write their first book or open their first startup company or have their first art exhibit. It's phenomenal. I want those 10 to 14 years, and they're available. They're available. Diet and lifestyle is so powerful.
No matter what choices you've made or how old you are, it's never too late to make a change and reap the benefits. In fact, a study published in PLOS Medicine found that moving from a typical diet to an optimal diet, even as late as the age of 60, could add 8 more healthy years of life. Even at the age of 80, you could add at least 3 more healthy years. And if you start sooner, say in your 20s or 30s, the benefits are even greater.
In the modern world, we're living longer than humans ever did before, and the primary causes of death and disease have changed quite a bit from what they used to be.
Humans certainly are living longer today than 100 years ago, right? I mean, about a century ago, life expectancies were down in the high 40s, low 50s. We're now in the high 70s to 80s on average globally. The other big change that we see is that, the primary drivers of premature mortality have changed significantly, right? Earlier, or 100 years ago, infectious diseases were the primary sources. Advances of medicine have eliminated that as a major source. And so what we're finding now when we look at the primary drivers of premature mortality is that diet is the leading cause. So if we want to continue expanding or growing on life expectancy, healthy diets and active lifestyles become a critical means of doing so. I'd emphasize here not just absolute increases in longevity, which some evidence suggests we might be reaching a peak around 80s, 90s. But what we also find is that healthy diets and active lifestyles extend productive or enjoyable years, if you want.
So I would say the evidence is just compelling that the main killers in the U.S. and growing numbers across the world of all the chronic diseases, because we've really addressed a lot of infectious diseases. So mortality is mostly
cardiovascular disease, including heart disease and stroke, and diabetes, and cancer. And then obesity is sort of right on the heels of that and contributing to that. Those are all strongly diet related. So there's many, many papers out there saying, okay, you do have to die of something, but the issue is early mortality or just disability, not living a vital life. There is so much data suggesting that you will be vital and live longer if you eat well. It's a daily thing. We know the biochemistry, we know the epidemiology. It is there. How can you not want to make this choice?
Diet is crucially important. And if we look at the healthy habits that can potentially reduce all the causes of mortality, there's 4 simple healthy habits that can reduce early mortality by 80%. So this is really important stuff. A healthy plant-predominant diet, not smoking, sensible use of alcohol or maybe no alcohol at all, and moving your body regularly. The most powerful of those 4 is what you put on your plate. And it's more powerful than all of the others combined. And when we think about the biggest causes of disease in the Western world, heart disease and lung disease and cancer and diabetes, 80% of those can be reduced by those simple 4 health habits.
Yeah.
So we need to crack on and have a good look at our plates and see what we can do to help ourselves.
We could prevent 12 million unnecessary human deaths every single year due to chronic diseases. We could keep hundreds of millions of people out of our hospitals every year and keep them at home with their families, at work, enjoying life and being productive.
I would say we only get one shot on this earth, right? This is it. We get one shot to make this journey, and we really want it to count and be our healthiest. We don't want to just live long. We want to live long and enjoy those years. We want those years to have purpose and meaning.
Life expectancy varies widely in different parts of the world, and more than 20 years ago, National Geographic explorer Dan Buettner set out to understand why. He decided to study, in particular, the places in the world where people traditionally live the longest and the healthiest lives. A few of these regions have come to be known as the Blue Zones.
The original blue zones were Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya Peninsula, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California. What Dan found was that in these regions, the number of centenarians, that is, people who live past the age of 100, was 4 to 10 times higher than what we generally find as average in the United States. And perhaps more significantly, people in these regions were found to live a lot more healthy years, free from chronic disease and disability, than most of us have come to expect.
Blue zones are at least a half dozen communities that Dan Buettner found, published in National Geographic, and now he has podcasts and websites about this. Pockets of areas where they found a higher than usual proportion of people who live beyond the age of 100. So it's, oh my God, look at all that longevity. What could it be about them? So lots of interviews and time spent with them. The only one in the US is Loma Linda, which are the Seventh-day Adventists, but there's one in Greece, and they're scattered all over the planet.
When Dan Buettner and his research team went to these various communities in Greece and Italy, Costa Rica, they look for, what are these people doing? Is there any common threads that we can generalize and use more universally? And several things stand out. One thing every society does is that they have legumes in their diet. They're somewhere along the line. Their soups and their stews, etc., all have beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, some type of legume in there. So beans seem to be a real staple around the world. Different kinds of beans, of course. But the other 2 things that really stand out when I read the Blue Zone research are, one, the physical activity. that these people do. And so the constant physical activity does good things for their heart, for their bones, for their muscles. But finally, and most assuring to me was the social support. As people get older, in our society, we discard them. We get them into the nursing home and forget about them. It's the opposite there. These people are treasured for who they are, for what they've contributed, for what they know. And many of them have grown up with close social bonds, friendships since childhood. And you see these people every day throughout your teen years and your 20s, and you go to their weddings, and then you go to their kids' births, and through their 40s and 50s and 60s, and finally you look around and, wow, you're all 90, and you still love each other and talk to each other on a daily basis. And you belong to your tribe, to a group who cares about you and that you can contribute to. You can teach the children. You can take care of the animals. You can do things for the community. People, we humans, we need to give. We're not takers, and the happiest of us. We know the joy that comes in giving. And even if you're over 100, you can still contribute a loving glance, a hug, a word of wisdom. And so as long as that keeps flowing, these people stay healthy, and lots of lessons there for us.
The Blue Zones concept has recently faced its share of critiques, especially from a British researcher named Saul Newman, who argues that errors in demographic records, poverty, and even fraud are more plausible explanations for what's believed to be these regions' extraordinary longevity. He also points to modern shifts in places like Okinawa, Japan, and Nicoya Peninsula, Costa Rica, where younger generations are adopting westernized diets and lifestyles as evidence against the idea of the Blue Zones being exceptional. These critiques deserve a thoughtful response, and many demographers, epidemiologists, geriatricians, and other scientists have provided one that I find pretty credible.
Yeah, the research behind Blue Zones appears to be pretty thorough and compelling. But the critiques miss the broader point of what makes the Blue Zones remarkable. It's true that Okinawa and Nicoya are not what they once were. But that doesn't debunk the Blue Zones concept, it reinforces it. The decline in longevity in these areas highlights how profoundly lifestyle choices shape health outcomes. The traditional diets and active lifestyles and strong social bonds and sense of purpose that defined these communities for generations are what made them Blue Zones, not some mystical or geographical quality. And as these habits erode, so do the benefits.
I think the takeaway isn't that we need to move to some faraway land. It's that any of us can create our own Blue Zone by adopting these time-tested habits. Some critics may nitpick the data, but the essence of the Blue Zones, the power of healthy food, movement, and meaningful connection remains as compelling as ever. Let's focus on what works and bring these lessons into our own lives.
Whether it's setting up walking school buses for kids, extending community garden spaces, creating no smoking areas throughout the town, or making sports activities easily accessible, Albert Lea has completely embraced the Blue Zones philosophy and completely changed its future.
Satisfaction levels with our town have risen almost 90%.
Healthcare costs for city workers is down 40%.
25% increase in property values across the board.
Biking and walking has increased by nearly 40% throughout our community.
Over 3 years of life have been added to the participants of this program.
I think it's also fascinating that the most thoroughly studied Blue Zone is in Loma Linda, California. The community of Seventh-day Adventists who make up most of the Loma Linda population consistently outlive other Americans by an average of 8 to 10 years. And this is remarkable as a case study because Loma Linda is right next to San Bernardino, a city that's grappling with staggering rates of chronic disease.
The first McDonald's that ever opened up in America was in San Bernardino. The people in San Bernardino, like the rest of the country, they eat the regular standard American diet. Lots of processed meats and lots of fat and oil. And with diabetes, heart disease, and dementia, the numbers are just astonishing and scary. But 5 miles away, right across Highway 10, you have Loma Linda. This population lives more than a decade longer and healthier than everyone else. I just want to repeat that, a decade longer. And you live a decade healthier. Why was that the case? That was an enigma to me. The environment is not much different. They get the same water, they get the same air. But in Loma Linda, most of the population has access to healthy foods, such as vegetables, beans, legumes, and fruits. And because a lot of them are Seventh-day Adventists, the majority of them are vegetarians. And even when they're not, they eat meat sparingly. Two areas, just 5 miles apart, and the biggest difference is food. That's profound.
So the Adventists in Loma Linda, California, for religious reasons, eat a plant-forward diet. So some of them are completely vegetarian, some of them are completely vegan, and some of them have small amounts of animal products, small amounts of meat, but less than the US average. Now, when we look at the blue zones and we look at their gut health, we see substantially lower rates of colon cancer. The Adventists who do consume meat are about 30% less likely than the US average to develop colon cancer. The Adventists who don't eat any meat at all are even less likely to develop colon cancer. So in many ways, it's the same outcome that we see when we look at rates of obesity and type 2 diabetes among the Adventists. They're all doing great, but as you take the animal products out of their blue zones diet, on average, they have lower rates of type 2 diabetes, lower rates of obesity, and lower rates of colon cancer.
Loma Linda and the other blue zones are regions where people tend to live longer and healthier than the rest of the world. In these communities, obesity, cancer, dementia, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, the major killers of our times, all tend to be less common. And when people in these regions adopt a more modern and industrialized dietary pattern, their health advantages seem to disappear. We see this same trend in less developed communities all around the world, where as people become more affluent, they tend to eat more meat and more processed foods. And along the way, waistlines expand, hospitals fill up, and chronic diseases that experts sometimes refer to as diseases of affluence become more common. But is it really true that rates of these diseases go up when people adopt a more Western-style diet? Or is it just that with affluence comes longevity, and with longevity comes the chronic diseases that never have a chance to develop if you die of an infectious disease or starvation in your 40s?
Back in the 1980s, Dr. T. Colin Campbell set out to explore all this in his groundbreaking research that came to be known as the China Study. This work is often referred to as one of the most comprehensive studies of nutrition ever conducted, and it challenged many long-held beliefs about diet and disease.
Dr. Campbell's research started in the lab and extended across rural China, spanning decades, during which dietary patterns and health outcomes were changing rapidly. And his team uncovered some striking patterns. Let's take a look.
America is suffering from diet-related illnesses. According to the American Cancer Society, men have a 47% risk of developing cancer in their lifetime. For women, it's a 38% lifetime risk. Colorectal, prostate, and breast cancer are among the most common. Dr. T. Colin Campbell, a nutritional biochemist who conducted groundbreaking research in the 1980s, may have the secret to preventing and even reversing some of these major health threats.
I had certain ideas that everyone else had, that the good old American diet is as good as it gets. Well, we got into science, I started doing things, fantastic things, very exciting opportunities over the years. I learned that what I thought was true in the beginning is not true.
Focusing on plant-based diets, he documented his research in the best-selling 2005 book, The China Study, co-written with his son and medical doctor, Thomas M. Campbell. The China Study reveals the dangers of consuming animal products and the benefits of plant-based nutrition. Dr. Campbell's team conducted lab research that connected nutrition to cancer. Their findings led them to the China Study, a study that spanned 10 years in rural China.
My dad was a project lead for the Cornell-Oxford China project, and this was a large nationwide survey across rural China, the first survey they did around 1980. And in rural China at that time, they had, people basically lived in the same communities that they were born in. There wasn't a lot of migration. It was still very traditional culture in rural China in the 1970s. And so they looked, for example, at disease rates across different counties in China. And they found that rates of Western disease like breast cancer, colon cancer, heart disease, those rates had wide variations across the country, much wider than you would see, for example, in the US, where people aren't, don't stay in one place with their families and lifestyles and so forth.
Right.
And so my dad and his collaborators and their team did a survey across these rural counties to look at a whole host of dietary factors, environmental factors, lifestyle factors, and basically assess what was different in each of these counties and how did it correlate to these very different rates of disease. And what they found was that, to make a very long story short, is that there are many markers of animal-based foods and markers of Western disease. And when you kind of correlated these things, you saw that more animal-based diet, more animal-based intake is correlated with more markers of Western disease. So that was a kind of a unique contribution. But when I think about the book, The China Study, and not just the scientific project, that any one project, any one study doesn't prove anything, right? And there's major limitations to any one study. But what became so compelling for me personally, and I think when people read the book, is that it goes far beyond my dad's one project in China to look at his laboratory research and experimental research, and all the way incorporating other people's research across observational studies and intervention studies and so forth, Dean Hornish and Esselstyn and stuff. And all of these things, when you look at it in aggregate, becomes overwhelming. It's the aggregation.
Yeah.
You can poke holes in any one study, but it's the aggregation of these common findings. If you're looking at these things across diseases, across interventions, across study designs, across populations, across researchers, and you get these common outcomes, it becomes pretty hard to refute, that you're not onto something.
We looked at the data from Japan. You go back to the 1980s, the Westernization had not really taken over in Japan too much. It was still a rice-based diet. Mostly rice, some vegetables. Ice cream wasn't the thing, in Japan at that time. Dairy wasn't big. There was some meat, some fish, but not huge amounts. And it was predominantly rice-based. If you looked at that time, about 15% of women had hot flashes when they would go through menopause, but for most, no big deal. The hot flashes were mild. Then you see Westernization coming in, fast food chains cropping up, meat going up, dairy coming in a big way, which is kind of novel. Breast cancer rates doubled. Diabetes went up. Heart disease went up. Many cancers went up. Depression became more common. And hot flashes, which had been about 15%, were well over 40% by the early 2000s.
We're dying 8 years younger than Japanese people and 5 years younger than Canadian people, and we're dying younger. We're losing years of healthy life. Americans live fewer healthy years of life than Cubans or Jamaicans or Chinese. Countries that spend a slight fraction of what we spend. And the real issue is, how do we live, not at what rate we die. But we die sooner and sicker than the people in the other countries.
Yeah.
And in order to achieve this awful comparative death rate or healthy life expectancy rate, however you want to look at it, in order to achieve that, we are spending an excess $2 trillion a year. That's $2,000 billion a year more than the other countries, wealthy countries, are spending on healthcare. So we're destroying our economy.
Big population data and epidemiological studies can be fascinating, but they can also be tricky because they often just observe patterns, which means they might mix up cause and effect or miss other factors that could explain the results. So what would happen if you tested different dietary patterns with people who had generally the same health history, the same financial resources, even the same upbringing? What if they also had the same genetics?
That's exactly what researchers set out to do in a fascinating 8-week study. They explored the cardiometabolic effects of a healthy plant-based diet compared to a healthy omnivorous diet, working with 22 sets of identical twins.
Everybody knows the average American diet is not very healthy. We sometimes call it the standard American diet, or SAD for SAD. That's why, as a nutrition scientist, I've tested many diets over the years looking for the healthiest ones. A major challenge in nutrition studies is that everyone is unique and individuals respond differently to the same food. So what if we got people who are genetically the same?
Identical twins often have the same mannerisms. They laugh in exactly the same way. The way they hold their coffee or teacups or drinking beer is extremely
Ross and I
specific to those twins. Identical twins are the perfect natural experiment because each individual has identical genes in every cell of its body. So they are the perfect way to tell nature from nurture.
So in the Stanford Twin Study, we took 22 pairs of identical twins. We randomized one twin to a vegan diet and one twin to a healthy omnivorous diet. We followed them for 8 weeks in total. For the first 4 weeks, we provided all the foods to them so that they would learn their new dietary pattern, what foods they should be consuming, what things they liked and didn't like. And then the subsequent 4 weeks, they provided and cooked all their own meals.
Very importantly, for the omnivores, which all of them were to begin with, none of them were vegan to begin with, we put a lot of emphasis on a healthy omnivorous diet so that the comparison group would not be some kind of straw man to knock over. So we measured a healthy eating index for both groups, and even the omnivores' quality of diet went up during the study. After 4 weeks of food delivery, they got 4 weeks of cooking on their own, which is more generalizable than food delivery. And we have blood, and we have poop, and we have surveys, questionnaires. And so we looked at lots of cardiometabolic risk factors. We looked at biological versus chronological age, and we looked at the microbiome, and the vegans won.
I think there could be a number of reasons for that benefit that we see. I think it comes down to the higher amounts of fiber that are in a plant-based vegan diet, but then also the micronutrients that are rich in abundance within our plant-based vegan diet.
The Stanford Twin Study provided compelling insights into cardiometabolic health, but it also revealed fascinating findings related to aging at a cellular level. Telomeres are protective caps at the end of our chromosomes. They naturally shorten as we age. Telomere length is a well-established marker of biological aging. In the twin study, researchers found a significant difference between the twins on vegan diets and their omnivorous counterparts.
The last results of the twins nutrition study are on the epigenome, or biological clock.
All right, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit away from metabolism and talk about aging. In addition to chronological age, how many years old is someone? We also use 2 different methods to estimate your biological age. The first one is the length of the telomeres, which are protective caps on the ends of strands of DNA.
Length of telomeres actually decreases as we age. If your telomeres stay longer, you're actually in better health and have a younger biological age relative to your chronological age.
The second marker we measured is called an epigenetic clock.
While your genome or DNA is fixed, your epigenome can be changed with things like nutrition and lifestyle. Epigenetics modifies how certain genes work and can tell us that your biological age is actually older or younger than your chronological age. A very new outcome for us that we had never done before was telomeres. These are the caps on our DNA that are protective of our chromosomes, and the longer they are, the more protective they are, and the shorter they become, the more we're aging. And it turned out the vegans did better on telomeres in just 8 weeks than the omnivores.
Typically when we do interventional studies, we try to say about 3 months to 6 months. With an 8-week study, we didn't really expect there to be much of a change. And so that's where it got really interesting.
At the beginning of the study, You and your twin had telomeres that were the same length. There was no statistical difference. By the end, in the omnivore group, there was no difference in the length of one person's telomeres from the beginning to the end of the study. But the vegan group had telomeres that were longer than the twin on the omnivore diet.
One of the most shocking findings of the study is that the twin that was eating the vegan diet is actually biologically younger than the twin that was on the omnivorous diet.
To see a significant reduction in biological age. Within 8 weeks, across all of the twins on a vegan diet, that was really interesting and surprising, to say the least.
We also had some epigenetic clocks. This is a whole new field of looking at your DNA, which you can't change, but you can influence how your DNA expresses the proteins that it makes by a term called methylation, where you add components to the DNA to sort of shut it down or amplify it. And if you look at the epigenetic clocks, the vegans got younger. And then we actually have some microbiome results that I can't talk about. I'm sworn to secrecy because it hasn't been published yet. But the vegans did better for their microbiome in a very surprising way. So we actually had in just 8 weeks a number of very notable, statistically significant benefits for the vegans over the omnivores.
Oh my God, I feel so set up. It's like, oh yeah, you omnivores, go on ahead, you know? And we're like, oh yeah, then our telomeres are getting shorter.
These epigenetic clock data suggest that eating a vegan diet can slow or even reverse cellular aging.
It's very impressive that this shift in diet had this dramatic effect in such a short time frame. It's a real biological finding which could then explain why plant-based diets generally lead to longer life.
The study was only 8 weeks long, but we already saw some significant advantage. So that really leads to implications of what if you followed this diet for an entire year, or 10 years, or an entire lifetime? What advantage will we kind of see?
The findings from the Stanford Twin Study and the connection between telomere length and diet give us a fascinating perspective on how nutrition can influence the aging process. But as we consider aging more broadly, it's clear that our nutritional needs don't remain static throughout life. Just as our bodies change with time, so too do the specific nutrients and lifestyle choices that support optimal health, especially after age 65.
That's such an important point, Ocean. As we age, our bodies naturally undergo shifts that affect how we process and utilize nutrients. Muscle mass tends to decline, bone density can decrease, and the ability to absorb certain vitamins like B12 becomes less efficient. These changes mean that adjusting our nutrient intake and overall diet are essential for maintaining vitality and preventing common age-related conditions.
Exactly. For instance, protein becomes more important for older adults to help preserve muscle mass and strength, which are critical for mobility and independence. Calcium and vitamin D and vitamin K play a vital role in maintaining bone health, which reduces the risk of fractures and osteoporosis.
What's encouraging is that with thoughtful adjustments, we can optimize nutrient intake to not only address these challenges, but to also enhance quality of life. It's about tailoring our diet and lifestyle to meet the unique needs at this stage of life.
Let's take a closer look at some of these key nutrients and at how your needs for them might change over time.
I believe that our nutritional needs age as we grow older, and part of that is due to the physiologic changes that occur with age. There's a slight decrease in our basal metabolic rate, our digestion may be altered, there may be changes in bone and muscle mass. I like to, advise individuals mainly over 65, but if you're navigating a chronic disease, this may apply to you if you're 50. And you can focus on several key nutrients to help maintain your health and your vitality. Protein's the first one. You want to prevent sarcopenia. And so older adults may require higher protein intake, around 1.3 grams per kilo per day. That's 0.6 grams per pound per day for those in the United States. And this, 30 grams per meal and just to give you a frame of reference, I'm 120 pounds. That's about 72 grams of protein a day. Very easy to meet that by having 20 to 30 grams per meal. So the first thing that we need to make sure that we focus on as older adults is our protein.
Ocean, I've heard that you sometimes kick off your mornings with a protein-packed smoothie. Can you share with us what's in it?
Of course. It's pretty simple. I start with 2 cups of unsweetened organic soy milk. My favorite brand is Eden Soy, which delivers 12 grams of protein per cup, and it's nothing but organic soybeans and water. And I scoop in 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, which delivers another 8 grams of protein, 2 tablespoons of hemp hearts, which adds another 9 grams, and I add in frozen and chopped up banana and a half cup of frozen mango or cherries or other fruit. Put in a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of vanilla extract. If I'm feeling fancy, I might add some cocoa powder or a few spices, and I blend it up and yum. The smoothie is giving me about 41 grams of protein. And with a start like that, I'm going to find it easy to meet my protein needs in the rest of the day. Plus, I'm getting antioxidants and fiber and isoflavones from the soy, and it tastes pretty darn good. And I find that it keeps me energized and satisfied.
That sounds incredibly delicious. And I love how you make it so easy to pack in protein and overall nutrition. And it's all from real food. I'm with you on the unsweetened soy milk, by the way. It's my favorite go-to plant-based milk because I just love its flavor, creaminess, and the fact that it has a lot of protein.
Exactly. And there are so many ways to get protein from plants, whether it's beans or peas or lentils, nuts, seeds, tofu, tempeh, edamame, and don't forget about whole grains. They're a good source of protein too that a lot of people overlook. We'll dive deeper into protein in episode 7. But now let's look at a few of the other nutrients that especially older folks need to pay a bit more attention to.
With aging, it's important for us to understand, make sure that we're getting enough vitamin D. So that's a good annual blood test to have done with your healthcare practitioner to make sure your vitamin D level is close to 50.
You may need to take vitamin D as a supplement, mainly because most of us aren't outside and exposed to the sun enough anymore to actually have that hormone produced in our skin. So knowing your numbers is important. I always like to make sure that older adults are aware that they may need to take vitamin B12. And this is regardless of whether they're plant-based or not. And that's partly because the absorption of vitamin B12 decreases with age. This is another measure that you can get from your lab test just to see where you are. But if you're insufficient in vitamin D, that can lead to anemia and neurological issues. And then the last 2 things I want older adults to think about are your omega-3 fatty acids and your fiber. Fiber should probably be a macronutrient that we talk about more. Omega-3 fatty acids are good for heart health, the brain health, and you get them from things that you can sprinkle on your salad or put in your smoothies like flax seeds, chia seeds. For those of us that are plant-based, we can get these as a supplement from algae-based supplements, and they provide EPA and DHA. High fiber foods are very important, and I can't stress enough that we need to meet that 25 to 30 grams per day in order to aid our digestion, feed our microbiome, reduce constipation. And so having whole grains, fruits, vegetables, these should be included in your diet regularly.
So protein, vitamin B12, vitamin D3, omega-3 fatty acids, and fiber are all critical longevity boosting nutrients. There are also a couple beverages, coffee and tea in particular, that are remarkably beneficial. These beverages are popular, and it turns out that might be a very good thing.
You're right, Ocean. For most people, that is completely true. A study published in Frontiers in Nutrition analyzed data from over 8,000 US adults and found that regular coffee drinkers had 11% to 13% higher muscle mass compared to non-coffee drinkers. The benefit was most pronounced in people with a body mass index under 30.
That's fascinating. And it's not the only such study, by the way. Another one from the National University of Singapore tracked over 12,000 participants between ages 45 and 74. The researchers observed that people who consumed higher amounts of coffee and tea at midlife had a reduced likelihood of physical frailty in later years. Those who consumed 4 cups of coffee per day experienced the most significant benefits, but consistent drinkers of black and green tea also saw real advantages.
So why are these beverages, coffee and tea, so helpful to maintaining strength? Well, we know that they're both rich in caffeine and bioactive polyphenols. Caffeine has been shown to stimulate muscle cell proliferation and enhance muscle mass, and polyphenols have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that may reduce the risk of conditions that contribute to frailty. And both caffeine and polyphenols have been linked to reduce risk of diseases that exacerbate frailty, including diabetes, cardiovascular issues, obesity, and neurodegenerative disorders.
Yes. And it turns out that both coffee and tea have other benefits too.
Coffee has been extensively studied, and interestingly enough, coffee is one of the main sources of antioxidants in the American diet, which just kind of shows, one, that Americans are not eating that many fruits and vegetables if they're getting their antioxidants from coffee, which is, bean water. But coffee has actually been studied, and there is a meta-analysis on coffee. Those that drink more than 3 servings of coffee a day have reduced liver disease, reduced depression, actually, and better cardiovascular disease. Now, those could be from some confounding factors. There are other studies that show it kind of depends on how you metabolize coffee and caffeine. But in general, the studies are pointing towards, if you like coffee, it actually is good for your health. If you're having one of those Starbucks drinks that are full with a lot of dairy and whipped cream, that's actually been shown to negate the positive effects of coffee and tea as well. So you really want to be looking towards just drinking coffee. And if you're going to add something to it, maybe some of the non-dairy items. Green tea and black tea have been shown to have acute benefits to cardiovascular disease. Even just 2 hours after you've had green tea or black tea, it's going to improve cardiovascular health. So, and even in kind of these population studies, you see that individuals or populations that drink more tea actually are living longer. Green tea, black tea, it's going to be good for your health. Herbal teas have actually been shown to improve blood pressure. So if you're a tea drinker, it's doing some good stuff for your health. Again, though, watch what you're putting in that tea. Individuals that add dairy, we see that those cardiovascular improvements are actually negated when you drink green tea with milk.
Stephanie makes a really important point about not negating the wonderful benefits of coffee or tea by drowning them in a sea of creamers or sweeteners. And there are a couple of other caveats to keep in mind as well.
Yes. A lot of people don't realize that most of the tea bags on the market are made with plastic or contain plastic linings that can release microplastics and harmful chemicals, particularly when soaked in hot water, which is something tea bags tend to experience. Studies have shown that steeping tea in plastic tea bags can release billions of microplastic and nanoplastic particles directly into your drink. These particles not only contaminate your tea, but they also could pose long-term health risks as they accumulate in the body.
And it's not just about what ends up in your cup. Tea bags containing plastic can't be composted even when they're marketed as biodegradable. Adding them to compost can introduce plastic particles into the soil, which is harmful to the environment. And if you have a garden where you use compost, these microplastic particles can wind up in your beloved vegetable garden.
Fortunately, there are better alternatives. There are a few brands that make plastic-free tea bags, including Puka, Republic of Tea, and Numi Tea. You can also use a stainless steel tea strainer or loose leaf tea in a reusable infuser, which is not only safer for your health, but also more sustainable for the planet.
Yes, that can be a wonderful step to take. And one more important thing to note about coffee and tea is that while they're associated with a bunch of wonderful health benefits for most people, they're not everyone's cup of tea.
So to speak.
Yes, exactly. Not everyone metabolizes caffeine well. So if you don't, you may find that it keeps you up at night or makes you feel really jittery for many hours. And if that's the case, you may want to steer clear of caffeinated beverages. The good news is that decaffeinated or caffeine-free teas and coffees still deliver massive health benefits, including polyphenols and other antioxidants.
And of course, nobody should be drinking caffeine in the evening or even the late afternoon if they want a good night's sleep. This is significant because we live in a highly stressed out society, and we keep learning more about the critical importance of sleep, rest, and dialing down stress.
Stress management is very important, and I shun, when people say get rid of stress, First of all, let me start by saying that not all stress is bad stress. I like to talk about differentiating between eustress, that's EUSTRESS, and distress, which is more of a less positive type of stress. So eustress is the type of stress that comes from things like a wedding or a celebration or getting ready for the holidays, when you may be stressed in the short term, but it's for good reasons. Stress only becomes negative when it becomes chronic stress. And that's when you are activating your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis for extended periods of time and have high levels of cortisol that are being released and that are stimulating different types of cells in your body. Managing stress, and stress is one of those triggers that can over time result in systemic chronic inflammation that can also result in chronic disease. So it's important to identify ways for you to manage stress. And there can be many different ways. I recommend that people look at things that you can do very simply and easy, whether it's meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, things that you can incorporate into your life, even in 5-minute intervals, to help lower that stress level, lower kind of the anxiety and tension that you may be experiencing. And you can also do it even sitting at your desk. So doing box breathing, doing some mindfulness using an app, those are all things that you can incorporate very easily to reduce stress. I think sleep is also important to reducing stress. So adequate sleep is important. And then a stress reliever that we often don't think about is movement. You may notice getting up from your desk, if you've been at your desk for a long time, going for a walk and including other people. So getting that social connection, that can also be a great way to reduce your stress. But it's very important for you to understand, one, what is the root cause of your stress? Because yes, we can find ways to manage stress, but my recommendation would be to find ways to mitigate it. And that's looking for those sources and trying to find a way to better manage those sources of stress.
I always say to people that stress is the wild card. You can have a very healthy diet, you can exercise, but if you have stress in your life, whether it's emotional, relational, financial, even not getting enough sleep is a stressor on the body. And it all works the same way. It activates our stress system. And when that system is activated, we release cortisol, which drives inflammation and changes the gut microbiome, and the body becomes inflamed and dysfunctional. So it's really important to identify the root cause first when we're looking to reduce stress in our lives, to find out where the stress is coming from and do the best you can to mitigate that source of the stress. So learning to say no is a very important part of stress management, especially in this day and age. And part of learning to say no is really looking at the things that we're doing and putting them in the context of our life and lifespan. What's really adding value to my life and the value to others' lives? And I'm going to invest in those things, like the core foundational stones in our life. And all of these other peripheral things, sometimes we have to push them out because they will definitely, it's the tyranny of the urgent. They will overtake our lives. So understanding time management is really essential. And then finally, simple things like deep breathing can lower your cortisol levels 25 to 35% in just 1 or 2 minutes. And so whether you're in the shower, you're at a stoplight, you're on a break, taking some time to close your eyes, connect with your heart, and breathe in and release. And instantly, in 2 breaths, the stress leaves your body, cortisol levels go down. So I always like to give people simple things that they can do, that they can work into their lives, that help to kind of pull back just enough of the chaos that they can find their way through towards a more stress-free life.
One very simple stress reduction technique is box breathing. So taking deep breaths. So the vagus nerve is really important for autoimmune disease and lowering inflammation and helping the immune system. So one way to stimulate the vagus nerve is by doing deep breathing. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and then breathe out for 4 seconds. It's sort of like a box. So there's many variations of it. Some people do 4, 7, 8 seconds, or you can do 4, 4, 4 seconds. So that's one way to lower your stress level. So you're in the moment, you're just focusing on your breath.
One of the things I love about breathing is that we bring it with us everywhere we go. You don't need any special tools or environment in order to breathe. And when you choose to breathe deeply and intentionally, it can send messages of peace and calm throughout your whole body. It can help you to dial down stress in a simple, basic, yet remarkably effective way.
Absolutely. And reducing stress is key. In fact, the 4 core pillars of lifestyle medicine and of longevity are to eat better, stress less, move more, and love more.
So let's look now at moving more. And it's important to recognize that being physically active looks different for everyone. Physical abilities vary widely, especially as we age or face health challenges.
That's so true, Ocean. What matters most is finding ways to move your body that hopefully can feel accessible and enjoyable. Whether it's walking, gentle yoga, chair exercises, lifting weights, swimming, biking, or even simple stretches, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to being active.
And the benefits go beyond just physical health. Regular movement can boost mood, improve energy, and even reduce the risk of chronic disease. Let's explore how incorporating movement into your routine at any level can support vitality and longevity.
Exercise is one thing that affects pretty much every disease and everything. And the best kind of exercise is the one you like, because if you like it, you'll do it. It really kind of comes down to that. Now, there's aerobic and there's strength training, and the optimal is to do both. That's what we ask our patients to do, because one builds up muscle mass, and especially as you get older, your muscle mass is, a lot of health benefits, but beyond just being stronger. And the aerobic just gives you more conditioning. But a little goes a long way. People think, gosh, if I don't have time to exercise for an hour or run 5 miles 3 times a week, I'll just roll over in bed. But the latest studies are showing how little exercise can make a big difference, especially if you do it intensively. Just a few minutes, 5 minutes of intense exercise can give you really remarkable health benefits.
So you definitely want to be busting a move. And when I talk about exercise and movement, people are like, I see the benefits. I talk about how you increase insulin sensitivity, you can enhance fat metabolism, you lower estrogen levels, which matter in breast cancer risk. And ultimately, you decrease inflammation, which allows your immune system to do its healthy cell scavenging things in you. They say, what is the minimum amount of exercise that I have to do to achieve all these benefits? And here are the answers. When you look at the exercise dose response curve, it's really interesting. So it starts off pretty steep, meaning just a little bit of exercise gives you some serious, excellent health benefits. And that will go, so time is moving out. The more you exercise, that curve is just getting you healthier until, boop, you start to curve at 300 minutes a week, 5 hours a week. More is still better. The curve still goes up ad infinitum. So exercise your heart to your heart's content.
Well, I think a good formula is some aerobic and some anaerobic. I mean, even if you're not training for anything specific and you're not trying to break any records and you're 50 or 60 or 70, we have to work our heart. And so, yes, aerobic exercise, just, being outside, hiking, walking, biking, whatever it might be. But I have learned that doing something anaerobic at least 1 day or 2 days a week as we age is critically important to keep that ticker really strong.
Sometimes we get caught up on using exercise for helping us to count calories and helping us to lose weight. I'd really rather my patients focused on their well-being. I would say focusing on either more of a high intensity interval training is quite good for cardiovascular fitness. Focusing on doing resistance training is particularly helpful for maintaining muscle mass.
You have to stretch a lot more than you did when you were younger because we get tighter and tighter. And that's also another way to mitigate injury is to stay flexible.
There's great research on other forms of exercise too. Yoga, for example, is being beneficial for people suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Even movements such as Tai Chi, you may see people doing that in the park in certain places. It's a really wonderful way of moving your body more intentionally, engaging the parasympathetic nervous system through movement, which is wonderful. And also studies have shown that it can improve and reduce the risk of frailty as we get older as well. So any form of movement is a good form of movement.
For someone that's in a lot of pain, exercise is still really important. But exercise can mean many different things. It doesn't have to be running a marathon or lifting weights. It could be simple as yoga or stretching. I see patients that sometimes can't even get out of a chair, can't get out of bed because they're so inflamed, there's so much pain going on. So for those patients, I tell them just try to stretch in your bed, or just do maybe some Tai Chi or Qigong, something that you can do that's not too rigorous. Or even do chair yoga, for example. Just do it to a point where you're not getting too much pain. So you want to keep moving because exercise is anti-inflammatory. Even aquatic therapy can be very useful if it can get in the pool.
We all need to do the best we can with what we've got. Sometimes that means climbing mountains. Sometimes that means taking deep breaths. And sometimes it means letting our loved ones know how much they mean to us and how much we care about them. We never know how long we or they have on this earth. Mortality can remind us how precious each moment with our loved ones really is. And that brings us to the fourth pillar of healthy longevity, which is to love more.
Modern health research is showing us that meaningful relationships and a sense of belonging aren't just nice to have. They are essential for our well-being. We're finding that strong social connections can reduce stress, improve mental health, and even boost immune function. In fact, people with close relationships tend to live longer and have lower risk of chronic diseases like heart disease and dementia.
And it's not just about the quantity of relationships, but the quality. I'm sure we've all got people in our lives that we don't really want to spend a whole lot of time with. But feeling loved and supported and understood and connected has profound effects on mental and physical health. So let's take a deeper look at the healing power of love.
Study after study have shown that people who are lonely and depressed, which I think is the real pandemic, are 3 to 10 times more likely to get sick and die prematurely from pretty much all causes when compared to those who have a sense of love and connection and community, in part because it affects our behaviors and in part in more direct ways. And so there's been a radical shift in our culture in the past 50 years with the breakdown of the social networks that used to give people a sense of love and connection and community.
So community, social connection, love, laughter, they are all so important for longevity and also for good mental health. And this isn't the likes that you see on Facebook or Instagram. This is human contact, human connection, where you are having conversations, where you are going for walks, where you are going to the gym, where you are having a meal. Social connection, love, and laughter, and also reducing social isolation are very important to health and longevity.
And we all know that when we have a conversation with a friend or get a hug, right, you just feel better, right?
Yeah.
Your heart stress levels go down, everything gets better. So having more love in your life, is it good for your heart? Absolutely. Having less stress in your life, is that good for your heart? Absolutely. You know, there's data to show that if you have those connections, your cortisol level goes down, your blood pressure goes down. So if you foster connection and love and community, you will improve your heart health. I mean, it's so cool. Like, it's so cool that you can connect love and heart health.
Restoring the sense of belonging, understanding who you are, where you come from, the relationship that you have with your ancestors, but also with future generations. We have relationships and obligations to leave the world a better place. I think learning how to think like that, where you're thinking about the impact of your life and the choices you make, not just on yourself, but you're thinking about that impact on your family, your community, your ancestors, and even those who've yet to be born, really is a change in thinking that Indigenous people have always understood.
Another piece of the longevity puzzle is menopause. It marks a significant transition for women, bringing changes that can affect energy, mood, and overall health. Hormonal changes during menopause, particularly shifts in estrogen and progesterone, can impact bone density, cardiovascular health, and even cognitive function. These changes are natural and vary from woman to woman. But the good news is that the way each woman responds to her body's changes can make a big difference for her.
Yes. And some of the same principles that are helpful in navigating menopause are also helpful for men in navigating andropause, which is a term for the hormonal changes that occur in men when their testosterone levels decrease with age. So let's explore how hormonal balance and lifestyle choices can empower us to thrive through these transformative stages of life.
Menopause is a natural life transition, but it doesn't come without challenges for a lot of women. And what happens around menopause is that your ovaries are naturally beginning to dial down their production of estrogen. And as a result, all of the cells in our bodies that respond to estrogen will have quite a different experience compared to when they were bathed in estrogen prior to that experience. So you may notice multiple effects in the body potentially. From the head to the toes. The most common symptom a lot of people describe around perimenopause, that time around menopause, is difficulties with things like brain fog, ability to concentrate, struggling to sleep, hot flashes, bone and body aches. About 30% of perimenopausal women will talk about how their body begins to ache, and other things that you might not even think about. Dry eyes, for example. Sometimes sexual dysfunction, not being able to have the same pleasure from having sex with your partner, for example. Joint issues sometimes as well. And weight gain, because your body is an amazing thermostat. Your body is wanting to increase the estrogen that your ovaries are no longer producing. And so it's more natural then to experience a bit more fat deposition around the center of the body, which then gives people a more of a propensity towards gradual weight gain over time. And so when we are aware of some of the changes that we are likely to experience, I think self-compassion is really important, not to be too hard on yourself, to know that a lot of these changes are part of those hormonal shifts, but that there is also plenty that can be done that can help you through it. And of course, diet can play a huge role in that. Eating whole foods, eating plant foods is fantastic. Increasing the fiber content of our foods is amazing. It allows us to be able to regulate our hormones in a much more efficient way. I love the soybean in all its forms and varieties, and it's really specifically very helpful in some studies for symptoms of things like hot flushes. Also great in terms of menopause, not only menopausal health, but hormonal health in general. For people who are experiencing heavy or painful periods, for example, or fibroids and endometriosis, it can be quite helpful to have these soybean foods because they provide isoflavones, which are really very helpful. If you have a microbiome that's able to digest these isoflavones, it provides you with phytoestrogens, which allow you to have a lot of relief from these symptoms.
There is something protective about a plant-based diet, that it keeps hormones more in check. And there's something about soybeans, that soybeans have what we call isoflavones, that have sort of a healthy medicinal effect. They're associated with reduced risk of breast cancer. Maybe they're fighting hot flashes too. So anyway, we had the opportunity to test this. And we brought in 84 women. We found that 3 things: vegan diet, keeping fat really low, and having a half a cup of soybeans, just plain old soybeans, cooked up in your pressure cooker. Those 3 steps would reduce the moderate to severe hot flashes by 88%. So it was as strong as hormone replacement. It was like a drug. Plus, women lost weight. They felt great. For some, the change was within days. For most, it took a little bit longer, a few weeks. But it was a huge effect.
So a vegan diet that included a half a cup of soybeans per day reduced moderate to severe hot flashes by 88%. That is pretty extraordinary.
It really is. There are many ways that a whole foods plant-based diet really does seem to be optimal for healthy aging. But bone strength is a bit more complicated.
Yes. Interestingly, the Adventist Health Study 2 revealed that plant-based eaters tend to be healthier across nearly every measure, from lower rates of chronic disease to longer life expectancy. However, one surprising exception was the rate of hip fractures, which were actually higher among the plant-based eaters, especially so for vegans.
Now that raises an important question. Why? It could be that the vegans in the study ate diets that were too low in calcium. It could be that their body mass indexes were lower, which is usually a good thing, but in the case of bone density might not be. You see, less weight equals less weight-bearing exercise. And weight-bearing exercise is one of the things that create strong bones. Working out with more weight makes your muscles stronger, and carrying more weight actually seems to make your bones stronger.
The good news is that there are some key steps we can all take, whether we're plant-based or not, to support bone health without needing to depend on dairy products. So let's explore how to optimize diet and lifestyle to build and maintain strong, resilient bones at every stage of life.
Yes, so there were some research studies that were published, I believe, in 2023 that indicated that vegans may be at a slightly higher risk of some changes in bone health as they age. I would say that maintaining strong bones is crucial regardless of whether you're plant-based or not. And my recommendations for all of our plant-based community is one, to start early, meaning that the foundations of your bone health start in your 20s, not in your 50s or 60s. So it's vital to pay attention to the factors that can impact your bone strength. These include your nutrition, being active, your hormonal balance, your lifestyle, and then avoiding smoking and excessive alcohol consumption. And I'll tell you, even though some people may have seen me recently, I regularly recommend that you understand the status of your bone health. And the best way to do that is through getting a DEXA scan.
Having a low BMI is very healthy for a number of reasons, but you want to make sure that, especially for people who've had a history of not having periods for more than 6 months during their reproductive lifespan, or people that have been underweight, living with a low BMI, people who've experienced health conditions where they've had to take steroids, for example, for long periods of time, they're going to all be more prone to osteoporosis. And so if that's you, it's really important to think about, okay, well, what can I do to maximize my bone strength? And for me, one of the number one tips I can give is really prioritizing resistance training. And that's hard, I think, especially for women, because they think, oh, I don't want to bulk up. I don't want to be, I don't maybe feel comfortable in a gym environment, for example, but it doesn't have to be that. You could get a can of beans, you could get a water bottle, and you just basically start to lift these items and try and do resistance training with your own body. Maybe see if you can progress to simple exercises like a plank, which could be tremendously difficult to start with. But if you keep practicing and using your own body weight as a resistance tool, you can start to do that without any equipment at all. And it can be really helpful to stimulate your osteoblasts and to improve your bone strength.
So imagine our skeleton it gets stronger as it supports our weight. And when we exercise, it supports our weight. So we talk about weight-bearing exercise like walking, hiking, jogging. Our skeleton supports its body weight, so that strengthens our bones. Things that are not weight-bearing are biking, swimming. While they're great exercises for other reasons, if you're looking to strengthen your bones, they're not going to do the trick. And then, of course, strength training like lifting weights, Pilates, or calisthenics can also be extremely valuable.
Diet's very important for bone health because bone health also has an immune system that plays a role in it. So if patients are eating a pro-inflammatory diet or a standard American diet, that can contribute to more osteoporosis potentially in the future, or bone thinning, because there are immune system molecules that go in and out that are active. So it can be pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory. And if you are in a pro-inflammatory state, it can resorb your bone and eat away the bone, causing bone thinning over time. So some of the pro-inflammatory foods that can contribute to worsening bone health include sugar, especially refined sugar, all the candy, sodas, that's very pro-inflammatory. Another one is processed meats. That can be very inflammatory as well. The hot dogs, the bolognas, the ham, that is also carcinogenic based on some of the data out there. And also a lot of the white flour, the pastries that has sugar and white flour as well, can be highly inflammatory. And a lot of people, they like to eat chips and those type of foods that are high salt, ultra processed food, that can be very detrimental for bone health in the long run. I don't think there's any one food that's like extra special for bone health in a plant-based diet. I think eating all the colors of the rainbow, make sure you get all types of phytonutrients, and fiber is so important. But also getting your protein in as well. So you can get that from beans, tofu, and a lot of plant-based sources.
And of course, for people who are eating a plant-based diet, what's going to be particularly helpful is focusing on improving and maximizing your sources of dietary calcium, and also vitamin D is going to be great for bone strength, as well as magnesium. Thankfully, with a plant-based diet, there's plenty of abundant sources of magnesium. And with careful planning as well, there's loads of great ways you can get lots of calcium.
Bone health is complicated, and there have been some observational studies where, for example, vegans have a slightly higher rate of hip fractures. And there are others that don't show that, but there are some that do. And in some of that research, the issue is that the calcium intake is quite low. If you're eating a restrictive diet with very little calcium intake, your bones are going to suffer. And in one study, for example, if they took out the people with very low calcium intake, vegans didn't have an increased risk of hip fractures, only if they really had a very low calcium intake. So, diets do have to be planned a little bit. It doesn't need to be that complicated, but you can't have a processed food vegan diet and have good health. You really have to focus on whole foods, and depending on your context, there are certain situations where you may need to supplement.
For plant-based eaters in particular, here's what you have to do. You need to make sure that you are getting adequate intake of the key nutrients. That's your calcium, your vitamin D, your magnesium, and your potassium. And you can do this very easily with a whole food plant-based diet. You don't need to do anything special. With vitamin D, you may want to make sure by talking with your healthcare team that your vitamin D levels are adequate. And so that may require vitamin D supplementation, and that's okay. And in addition, vitamins K1 and K2 that are found in leafy greens and fermented foods, they can play important roles in helping absorb the calcium in the vitamin D and play a positive role in bone metabolism.
For postmenopausal women and for men over 70, it's probably ideal to be getting about 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day. One of the top plant-based sources is tofu that is coagulated with calcium. Just a half a cup of tofu can deliver over 400 milligrams of calcium. And there are more great sources. A cup of black-eyed peas delivers 370 milligrams of calcium. 2 ounces of sesame seeds gives you 560 milligrams. A big bowl of steamed kale can give you 300 milligrams, and 2 tablespoons of blackstrap molasses gives you over 300 milligrams of calcium. Of course, all of this adds up, so getting 1,000 or 1,200 milligrams of calcium in a day can be very doable. If you're getting enough calcium from food, then you likely do not need a calcium supplement.
It's true. Getting enough calcium from food is ideal, and most of us don't need a calcium supplement to meet our calcium needs. But if you're concerned about bone health, and especially if you're a postmenopausal woman, then it could be wise to take a small amount of supplemental calcium a couple times a day. And this is especially true for vegans. The Adventist Health Study, too, found that vegans had higher rates of hip fractures than omnivores or dairy-eating vegetarians did. But, and this is important, when they took small amounts of calcium supplements and also took vitamin D3 regularly, that disadvantage evaporated.
Yes, and it's worth noting that calcium supplementation is controversial. Some studies have linked excessive calcium supplementation to shorter life expectancy. It turns out that too much calcium can end up in the arteries instead of the bones. And in the arteries, it can contribute to calcification and to cardiovascular disease risk. That's where vitamins D3 and K2 come in. It seems that they help your body absorb the calcium you consume and to direct it to the bones where it belongs.
Taking a thoughtful and balanced approach to bone health is important. This includes diet and, in some cases, supplements. It also has got to include exercise because, truthfully, weight-bearing exercise is far and away the #1 most important factor for bone health. Bones respond to healthy stress. It's a classic case of use it or lose it. And in this case, the lighter your body is, the more important it is for you to incorporate weight-bearing exercise in order to support strong bones.
Another area that often comes up as a point of concern with aging is vision loss. Conditions like glaucoma, cataracts, macular degeneration, and eyesight deterioration are often considered inevitable with aging. But are they inevitable? Research suggests they're not, and it turns out that specific foods can make a world of a difference for eye health. To learn more, let's turn to one of the world's foremost experts, the integrative ophthalmologist, Dr. Ronnie Bannock.
So the way most eye doctors are trained traditionally, whether they're ophthalmologists or optometrists, is to basically wait for a problem to appear and then to try to treat it. So it's almost like you're kind of chasing, chasing your tail with it. Let's say somebody has cataracts or glaucoma. Once they actually develop the problem, that's when we start addressing it and managing it. Rather than taking a root cause approach, which is basically what I've shifted my career into doing once I got certified in functional medicine, I try to find where the potential causes of the problem may be and address them before they cause vision loss. Whether it's cataract, which is an opacity of the lens in the eye where people can't see properly because there's almost like a dirty lens that they're seeing through, or it's glaucoma where the pressure can go high in the eye and damage the optic nerve, or macular degeneration. All three are due to the delicate tissues of the eyes over time undergoing oxidative stress and then developing damage and loss of function of the tissues. So when it comes to lifestyle and nutrition, there are so many things people can do to fight against that type of oxidative stress. I would love to highlight 3 nutrients that most of us probably don't hear so much about. They're what I consider like the eye vitamins, even though officially they're not vitamins, they're carotenoids, they're bioactive compounds. These are lutein, zeaxanthin, and mesozeaxanthin. I know they're kind of hard to pronounce, hard to remember, but don't worry about the names, but just know that there are 3 of them. They're called carotenoids. They're cousins to beta carotene. They're cousins to vitamin A. And the reason why they're so important for eye health is because the beauty of nature is that, of course, our bodies can't make these nutrients, so we need to get them externally. But when we get them through our food, our body absorbs these nutrients and selectively deposits them in the back of the eye. So it's amazing how our bodies have evolved in this way to take these nutrients from our food, deposit them into the retina, into the macula in the back of the eye, and then these nutrients serve as natural shields for oxidative stress. So it's almost as though we have internal sunglasses or internal blue blockers with these nutrients. They shield against the harmful effects of UV light and even blue light. So it's really, really, really important. I can't stress enough how important it is for people to get enough of these 3 nutrients, lutein, zeaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin. And they're also great for brain health. There's actually a lot of literature published to show that these 3 are very, very important for cognition and memory. And they're also great for skin health. So it's like a win-win. You're doing whatever you're doing for your eyes, you're also helping your brain, and your whole body will benefit, basically. And also the good news is there are many sources of these nutrients. So it's not just, if I only have this one food, will I be able to get these nutrients? That's not true. The good news is there are many, many foods that provide us with lutein and zeaxanthin, which is good.
So those eye health nutrients, lutein and zeaxanthin, that concentrate in the retina, are found most concentrated in dark green leafy vegetables. So that's one of the ways where we can preserve our vision as we get older is by eating lots of greens. But that's not the only way we can help. The good news is that the risk for macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, and glaucoma, cataracts, the four most common causes of vision loss, can all be reduced with dietary changes. So lutein zeaxanthin from dark green leafy vegetables. These two yellow pigments protect the retina from light damage. Also found in yellow corn, goji berries, and avocados, but most concentrated in dark greens. And chopping and steaming greens, as well as eating them with a healthy source of fat, like nuts or seeds or nut butter, seed butters, can improve lutein bioavailability. Saffron is a spice that may improve age-related macular degeneration. The best way to prevent diabetic retinopathy is to not get diabetes in the first place, or reverse your type 2 diabetes with a healthy enough diet. Greens may also help prevent glaucoma along with regular exercise. And black currants, ginkgo biloba, and nicotinamide may slow the accumulation of visual deficits in glaucoma. Cataract surgery is relatively safe and simple procedure for cataracts. And in terms of preventing cataracts, we can reduce our exposure to oxidative stresses like UV rays in sun, as well as consuming lots of lutein zeaxanthin rich foods such as greens, vitamin C rich foods such as broccoli, bell peppers, tropical fruits, citrus, all associated with the lower cataract risk, though antioxidant supplements don't appear to help. And there appears to be a stepwise drop in cataract risk as one's diet gets more and more plant-based.
We keep learning more about the power of diet and lifestyle to expand our capacity to live fully and to love the lives that we have. When it comes to eye health and bone health, to muscle strength and menopause, to disease prevention and vitality, we often really do hold our lives and our futures on our plates.
One of the things I've loved most about being in this food revolution movement for decades now is the opportunity to hear story after story of healing and transformation. Around the world, millions of people have experienced firsthand how changing their diets has enabled them to reverse disease and to feel better. These results are fairly predictable, but to me, that doesn't ever make them anything less than miraculous.
At FRN, we get to hear these stories just about every day, and they always fill me with joy and with gratitude. One example amongst so many is Lori Stoddard.
My health challenges developed over a period of about 10 years. I went from being healthy in my 50s, I'm now 63. I left a vegetarian diet and I basically evolved into gaining weight, eating a standard American diet, moved to Kentucky, which is where I'm from now, and I became pre-diabetic, hypertensive, overweight, had a BMI of, like 32%, and just was feeling miserable all around. And my cholesterol was high, about 300. I felt sluggish. I felt moderately depressed because I couldn't really move the way I had in my younger years. I knew that I had to change, make some serious changes in my life. And from my previous experience, I knew that maybe nutrition would be the way to go. What really caught me emotionally is I had a younger brother that died of diabetes. And as someone who had been diagnosed with pre-diabetes, I was afraid. I was like, oh my goodness, I know what that looks like. I had a father that passed with cardiac incident. So the fact that I was hypertensive also hit me. So I was afraid on two fronts, knowing how those disease processes go together, that I was going to head down that path. And I knew I needed to do some dramatic change in my life. So by going vegan, and it was a gradual transition, I found I was able to change everything. All my parameters have changed for the better, and I'm very happy about that. So biomarkers that have shifted, I've lost 30 pounds. I had to go out and buy an entire new wardrobe. Yay! I'm no longer hypertensive. My cholesterol went from really high to normal. My A1C went from pre-diabetic to still a little high, but way in the right direction. And I just found that everything changed so that I physically I changed. And I found myself actually strangely, it was like reacquainting myself to the younger version of myself. I found that, wow, this is what young Laura felt like. I've been a personal trainer. I'd been an athlete all my life. And so it was like all of a sudden, oh, I can now walk that 2-mile walk. Whereas before, a half a mile was all I could do without getting winded. Having my health back means I'm happier in my body. I'm clearer in my mind. I'm emotionally more grounded. And I have tremendous hope for my future, personally and then interpersonally. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a grandma. All these people in my life that I love and cherish, I get to really look forward to being there with them. Whereas before I was worried that I might not be.
Lori's story is amazing. But is it possible to be healthy even past the age of 100? Here's a little clip that I think you might enjoy about Mr. Mike Fremont.
Mike Fremont is a 100-year-old marathon runner who set the fastest time slot for a marathon ever finished by a 91-year-old. Fremont was diagnosed with colorectal cancer at 69. He was reportedly given 3 months to live and turned to a plant-based diet to help shrink cancer. Because for Mike, it's all about diet, specifically the whole food plant-based diet he adopted 30 years ago. According to Runner's World, he backed away from the tumor with his new diet plan before having surgery to remove what was left in 1994. The conclusion he came to long ago was the absolute satisfaction that people could go into their lifetimes and that they consist in helping other people, period. In whatever way as much as you can, that brings real rewards. He's mentioned the importance of healthy relationships and the happiness and the joy they bring you. He said that staying engaged with life with other human beings, having a sense of purpose, like his connection to climate change issues and sustainability, as his love for running, canoeing, and exercise.
I've got so many patients that haven't felt quite right, weren't able to define what felt wrong, but just that their bodies didn't feel right. They felt sluggish, they felt tired, perhaps carrying some extra weight, just feeling a lack of vitality in their bodies. And when they've shifted to a more whole food plant-based diet, when they've taken those lifestyle steps that we've talked about today, then their whole perspective can change, their whole trajectory of life can shift, and their imagination can start to really kick in, and they can have a life that's completely different from the one that they could ever have imagined for themselves before. So for me, it can be the difference between living a life of intention and beauty and living a life where you just haven't been able to make those decisions for yourself.
Your body is truly a temple. Your body is really the only home that you have, that you will live in for your whole life. And so it should be seen as a privilege and an honor to care for it, so that you will be able to live and thrive and do everything that you were meant to do on this earth.
Some people ask if it's too late for them. After a lifetime of bad habits, does it really matter what you eat? And we say yes. It always matters. And in fact, the worse your habits have been, then in some ways the more you've got to gain from making a positive change. The human body has an extraordinary capacity to heal and to regenerate when you give your body the right fuel. And when you bring your choices into alignment with your well-being, it's incredible what a difference it can make. Whether you have another month or another decade or another 100 years on this planet, your every moment can be a bit brighter and a bit more beautiful when you love your body enough to nourish it well.
That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do, because the status quo is no longer acceptable, because people's lives are on the line, and because we can do better.
Yes. And we're just now nearing the end of episode 1. We have so much more to share and to learn together. In our next episode, we'll team up with another brilliant panel of experts as we focus on boosting brain health. We'll look at how you can prevent Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia, and how you can effectively fight depression, anxiety, and other mental health challenges. And we'll look at how the right diet and lifestyle choices can help you enjoy a clearer mind and a healthier, happier life. We'll see you there. Let's do this. Thanks so much for joining in that episode 1 broadcast. To express your opinions on what you've been hearing and to find out what other people are saying, post and engage in the comment section on the broadcast page. Make sure you refresh the comments using the button provided there so you can see the most recent ones that have been submitted. Dana said, this was such an inspirational session. I'm doing a lot of things right, but still learned I can do more. I love the format, the music, and the overall presentation of this event. Thank you. I felt your love. Thank you, Dana, and I feel your love too, and I'm so glad you are here. Our team has been working on this for over a year now, and it is such a joy to get to share it with you today. Joyce said, thank you, Ocean, for this amazing summit. I've been eating plant-based for almost 3 years, and just as you mentioned during one of your summits, my taste buds have changed. I really enjoy eating more vegetables and raw veggies even more. My blood pressure used to be 140 to 150 over 88 to 90. Today it's 117 over 78. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel so much better. Joyce, thank you for being here. I am so glad that you are feeling so much better and that your blood pressure has come down and that your taste buds have changed. This is a thing that a lot of folks don't realize, but literally your saliva will change when you adapt to eating more healthy foods. It can take a little time, but there's actually been research done on kale specifically. The first time somebody eats kale, it tastes quite bitter to them. By the 6th, maybe 10th time that they eat it, if they eat it with a bit of frequency, their saliva changes and it starts to taste sweeter. So this can happen, and habit and repetition and familiarity and making friends with recipes you love can help as well. George said, I'm from Peterborough, Ontario. I've been watching the summit since it began. Always new info. George, thank you for being with us. We started in 2012 with our first Food Revolution Summit. It's been kind of an annual ritual for these last 14 years, and I am so thrilled that you are here with us. And yes, always new info. We're learning new things every day, it seems, about food, health, the planet, and how it all fits together. So thanks for being with us. Amy said, can these sessions be watched later? Thanks for asking, Amy. So, of course, if you're watching right now, you're seeing the live broadcast, but some of you may actually come in later and watch the replay. So after every episode and broadcast concludes, we will put them up on replay until the next day's broadcast is ready to begin. So about 21 hours or so of replay. Of course, if you get the empowerment package, then you can watch it anytime or place you want for life because you'll own it, including all the expert interviews and a lot of other bonus resources. Wendy said, I'm Wendy, age 42, and so many of my friends and family have cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, etc. I want to age without those things happening to me. Thank you for this summit. Wendy, I'm so sorry that so many of your friends and family are struggling with these conditions, and it's normal, all around us. And the reality is, if you drive your car into a brick wall, your death certificate might say something like impalement by brick wall, but the truth is that it was your driving that caused the crash, right? And if you're driving in a way that has you crashing into a brick wall, you might also crash into something else. So the reality is that the modern diet is like bad driving that puts us on a collision course with disease. And I can't tell you whether it's going to lead to cancer or diabetes or high blood pressure or what condition that may take somebody's life or cause suffering and misery along the way, but it's almost inevitable that when you don't give your body the right fuel, you will end up creating the conditions for dis-ease. So what we're here, of course, to focus on is how you can turn that around, how you can be a good driver, to use this metaphor, of your health and your well-being. And as we're learning, what we eat is powerful. Sandra said, Ocean, I'm so excited for this 2025 summit. Last year I had difficulties watching the evening broadcast, and you graciously gifted me an empowerment package. I purposed in my heart to save to purchase this year's complete package, and a week ago I did so. I have shared this summit with so many people who are dealing with very poor health and even death. Without a doubt, a whole foods plant-based lifestyle is the road to life abundantly. Sandra, thank you for sharing. Thank you for spreading the word to your loved ones and your community. Thank you for being on this path with us. And thank you so much for saving up to be able to invest in the empowerment package this year. You know, we couldn't do this without people like you stepping forward and investing in our work. And I'm so grateful for your support, and for not just your support with the empowerment package purchase, but your support by spreading the word and living the word as best you can in your life. Bless you and thank you. Barbara said, I read John's book way back when it first came out. He's one of the reasons I'm so healthy now. Thank you, John Robbins. Yes, Barbara. Blessings to my dad, who is very much a part of all this, even though he stepped back from the front lines. He is with us all. He is sending his love to you, to everybody watching, and we carry the torch of his message forward in the world, and I do so with such gratitude and reverence. Sherry said, don't know if my question has gone through. Didn't seem to post. Is oatmeal good or bad for you? I hear conflicting opinions. Sherry, good question. And yes, your post went through, which is why I'm responding now. So oatmeal can be a great addition to most people's diets. Of course, no food is right for everybody, but oats are rich in fiber, especially beta-glucan, which helps lower cholesterol levels. So it supports heart health. It stabilizes blood sugar levels. And some people worry about the carbs in oats, but the complex carbs in oats are digested slowly and they provide steady energy. And the key is to go for plain and minimally processed oats like steel cut or rolled oats and skip the sugary instant packets. You want to maybe top your oats if you can with fruits or berries, nuts or seeds, and you get a powerhouse meal that can be good for your heart and your gut and your blood sugar. And for bonus points, add a couple tablespoons of ground flax or chia seeds on top, and you'll get a boost of omega-3s as well as protein, fiber, and lignans. Leah said, hey everyone, I am a dietetic student from Detroit, Michigan, looking forward to learning ways to promote a plant-based diet. Leah, it is so wonderful to have you here. And as a dietetic student, you're stepping into such an important role, helping people make choices that nourish their bodies and their lives and their planet. And the fact that you're already exploring the power of a whole foods plant-based diet is so inspiring. We need more voices like yours, especially in the world of nutrition. People trust dietitians, and when you share the science-backed and life-changing benefits of plant-based eating, you can make a real difference in their lives. So thank you for being part of this movement. We're cheering you on all the way from here, and I can't wait to see the impact that you're going to make. By the way, you may be interested, as may some other folks watching, in FRN's plant-based coaching certification. So we train folks, some are healthcare professionals, some are just lay folks who want to dive in deep and maybe consider a career change in how to become a plant-based coach. We focus on nutrition and also coaching skills and the science of behavior change, and also impact and how to change the world, how to be an entrepreneur and get coaching clients if that's what you want to do, and so much more. You can find out more about it if you're interested at certification.foodrevolution.org. Again, that's certification.foodrevolution.org. And you can learn more, and we actually have an insider deal. The next cohort starts in January of 2026, and if you register soon, you can actually get the lowest possible price. It's just a $100 refundable deposit. Anyway, that's all available at certification.foodrevolution.org if you are interested. Terry said, soybeans are grown using lots of Roundup. It's hard to believe that all soybeans labeled as organically grown are actually organic. How do you rationalize consuming soybeans daily with the associated pesticide residue load? Well, Terry, here's the thing. Yes, conventional soybeans are grown with Roundup because they are genetically engineered in most cases. About 90+% of the soybean crop grown in North America is genetically engineered. And it's been engineered to withstand doses of herbicides like Roundup, which kill the weeds, but not the genetically engineered crops. And Roundup is a probable carcinogen and known endocrine disruptor. It's been patented as an antibiotic, so it's probably not good for our gut bacteria either. That said, organic soybeans are not hard to find. And at this point, at least, our organic program is legit. It's backed up, and we trust it. I trust it. So if soybeans are labeled organic, then they legally have to be grown organically. And if they're grown organically, that means they are not genetically engineered and they were not sprayed with Roundup. So this is a good thing, and I believe it's that soybeans are linked in an enormous number of health studies with positive benefits for longevity and well-being. Most of those soybeans, by the way, were not grown organically, and they're still associated with great health benefits. So if you can go with the organic ones, all the better. But I'm not even going to say with confidence that we shouldn't be eating soybeans even if they are not grown organically. I'm just going to say organic is best, and we should go there if at all possible. Bob said, is there a way to turn off the chat? Yes, Bob, what you can do is when you look at the YouTube live player we're using for this broadcast right now, you can click the button in the bottom right corner, and that'll make the broadcast full screen. And then you can just immerse yourself. And by the way, if folks don't know, you can also cast these broadcasts on a large screen TV. Brad said, I'd love to get that favorite smoothie recipe, Ocean noted. A lot of folks asked about that. So you may have heard me talk about a morning smoothie. Here it is, show and tell time. So what I do is I blend up I'm going to say this slowly because we don't actually have it on the page, but I blend up 2 cups of soy milk. I generally use Eden soy unsweetened because that is the highest protein soy milk out there, 12 grams per cup. And it's just organic soybeans and water. Okay, so 2 cups of soy milk, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. You could also use almond butter if you're allergic to peanuts or some other nut butter. 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a cup or more of frozen fruit like mango or pineapple or cherries or berries or bananas. Blend it up and enjoy. And by the way, sometimes I make a double batch and then I've got enough for 2 days in a row. It's delicious, and I'm getting over 40 grams of protein before breakfast. Tammy said, so I will be cutting open my tea bags and dumping them into my metal strainer. Do they all have microplastics? I thought most were made of paper. Well, Tammy, more show and tell. So yeah, this is a tea bag, a tea strainer. So you can put loose leaf herbs in here. It's actually saved quite a bit of money. And then just steep this in your cup, and that's your tea. Speaking of show and tell. Not all tea bags have plastic in them. Most do. 3 brands that say they are microplastic free are Republic of Tea, Numi, and Pookie. So those are options you may want to consider if you still want your tea bags. But the nice thing about going with loose leaf is that you can also save some money, and you can enjoy getting your own fun mixes of flavors if you want to get creative about it. And that works well too. So both are options. Or as you mentioned, you could literally, if you have a tea bag you love that's the perfect mix, you could open it and put the herbs straight into something like this before you steep so that you're not putting that plastic in boiling water. You're still going to get a little bit of microplastic from the bag, but maybe not so much. And again, the brands that advertise as being microplastic free are Republic of Tea, Numi, and Pookie. Mary said, I love being here. I have a veggie garden and many berry and fruit trees. Love being connected and nurturing food for me, my family, and friends. Mary, that's beautiful. There's something so powerful and so healing about growing your own food. And you have a veggie garden and berries and fruit trees. And that's not just nourishment. It's connection, it's creativity, and it's care right in your own backyard. Growing food gives you food security. It gives you a connection to a sense of place and belonging in the earth. It's good for your microbiome, interacting with all of those compounds in the soil. It's good for your gut health and digestive health. It's good for your skin health. It's good for getting you exercise. It connects you to the sacred cycles of life. And research shows that when people grow vegetables, they eat more vegetables, which also means it's good for your health at that level. And of course, you're getting the freshest food that's possible. So good on ya, and good on all the gardeners out there. Thank you for helping to restore our precious planet and grow food. We have a question about what would be the best diet for a type 2 diabetic with hypothyroidism, MCI, and Parkinson's who is underweight and having some gut issues. So there's a lot here, and I want to take a little time to touch on all of these specific challenges. So thank you for bringing it forward. So when someone's navigating type 2 diabetes, hypothyroidism, mild cognitive impairment or MCI, Parkinson's, and gut issues, and is also underweight and losing weight, there's a lot to consider here. And I want to start by saying it's a challenging situation, and you may want to work with a knowledgeable healthcare provider, especially a plant-based or integrative dietitian or a plant-based coach. That could be really helpful. That said, here are some core principles that might be of benefit for you. So number one is you want nutrient-dense, calorie-supportive foods. So because weight loss is a concern, you want to focus on whole plant foods that are rich in calories and in nutrients. Think about things like avocados and nut butters, tahini and hemp seeds, oats, smoothies like the protein one I mentioned earlier, fruits and greens, and maybe also plant-based protein powders. These can help support your energy and help stabilize weight while being gentle on your gut. Number two is going to be blood sugar balance. So for people dealing with type 2 diabetes, you want foods that are high in soluble fiber, like lentils and chia seeds and oats and legumes. They can help regulate your blood sugar. But if there are gut issues, then these might need to be introduced kind of slowly with attention to how they're tolerated, because sometimes a lot of fiber can actually be irritating for the gut when it comes in all at once if your gut isn't used to it. Cooking vegetables and gentle soups can be a soothing place to start, and then keep leaning in more and more so that your gut develops like a muscle, develops that strength to be able to handle the soluble fiber that in the long run will make it and you stronger and healthier. Number three, let's talk a little bit about brain and nerve support. So for MCI and Parkinson's, healthy fats like omega-3s, like ground flax and chia, as well as walnuts, and maybe algae-based DHA and EPA supplements can be beneficial. So can berries and cruciferous vegetables, all of which are brain supportive. Antioxidant-rich foods can help reduce oxidative stress, which is implicated in both these conditions. And we're going to talk a lot more in episode 2 tomorrow about brain health. We're going to look a little bit at Parkinson's and mild cognitive impairment, so stay tuned. Now, for thyroid health, for hypothyroidism specifically, especially if it's due to Hashimoto's, consuming plant foods like soy and cruciferous vegetables might be okay. But it's important to talk with your healthcare provider about consuming them a few hours before or after taking any thyroid medication to avoid the foods interfering with that medication. And in terms of gentle digestion with gut issues, introducing fiber-rich foods can help, but again, doing it slowly is important. And cooking and blending foods may ease the digestive burden. This is a complex dance of balancing a lot of different priorities, and your body may need a little time and patience to respond. But the biggest thing I want to say is bring love and kindness and curiosity to your body. Keep listening, keep loving. When you notice pain, instead of tightening around it, see if you can bring curiosity and kindness and wonder, what is there to learn here? And it doesn't always mean something's wrong. Sometimes it means there's something's tender, something's vulnerable, something's needing care. So keep bringing that love and curiosity and keep learning and keep participating in this summit, because you're going to get a lot out of this journey. Thanks for being here. We also had a question from another participant who said, I recently had a kidney stone. I've been eating a cancer-fighting diet, which turns out not to be good for oxalates, which can cause stones. I need to learn the balance. Well, thanks so much for sharing what you've been going through. And kidney stones can be so painful, and it's totally understandable to feel a bit caught off guard by that, especially when you've been doing your best to follow a cancer-fighting diet. And the good news is, with a few mindful adjustments, you probably can get the best of both worlds. You can follow a balanced path forward that helps you fight cancer and doesn't make you overly prone to kidney stones. So a few things are, number one, stay hydrated. Water is one of your best allies. It helps to flush out excess minerals and keeps your kidneys in good working order. You may want to divide your weight by 2 and aim for that many ounces of water per day. Your weight in pounds, that is. Watching your salt intake can be really helpful. Too much sodium can contribute to kidney stone formation, so keeping your intake under 1,500 milligrams a day is a great target. That means going easy on processed foods and reaching for herbs and spices and lemon juice to flavor your meals instead. Number 3, you want to reduce your calcium and oxalate intake appropriately, and this is a big piece. So you want to make sure you're getting enough calcium, ideally from low oxalate plant-based sources like bok choy or kale or broccoli, because they help bind to oxalates in your digestive tract, so they're excreted rather than absorbed. But if you're eating foods with moderate oxalate content, then pairing them with calcium-rich foods at the same time can make a big difference. We actually have a great article on our website about calcium-rich foods and another on magnesium-rich foods, and you can find them if you go to foodrevolution.org and type in calcium and magnesium, respectively, in the search bar. So calcium and magnesium can both be beneficial, and those articles might help you know where to get them from. And finally, you want to go easy on the high oxalate foods, but don't panic here. So spinach and beet greens and dandelion greens and chocolate and even tea can be high in oxalates, but that doesn't mean you have to cut them out entirely. In some cases, you can steam or boil or soak or ferment these foods, which will reduce their oxalate content. The key is moderation and preparation and balance. And again, there's an article. If you go to foodrevolution.org and type oxalates in the search bar, you can learn more about them and how to reduce any potential dangers there, so you reduce your dangers or your risk of kidney stones. We're going to learn a lot more about cancer in this summit too, so make sure you tune in for the cancer episode, because fighting cancer is obviously a big deal, and you can do it with food. Suzanne said, I like vegetables, but I do not know how to make a meal out of them. Suzanne, thank you for sharing about this. A lot of people are in this boat, so to speak, and struggle with how to actually really enjoy vegetables. I mean, we all know they're good for us, right? But how can we make them the stars of our plate? Well, here's a few ideas. So number one is start with a base. Think about your meals in layers, and a great starting point could be a whole grain like brown rice or quinoa or farro, or a legume like lentils or black beans or chickpeas. That gives you substance and protein and staying power. But then number two is to pile on the veggies. Roast them, steam them, saute them, enjoy them raw. Any way you can learn to love them. Mix colors and textures and flavors, and don't be afraid to experiment. And then number three, add in some healthy fats. A spoonful of tahini, some slices of avocado, a handful of walnuts, maybe a small drizzle of extra virgin cold-pressed olive oil can make veggies taste more rich and more satisfying. Number four, flavor is everything. So use herbs and spices and garlic and lemon juice and vinegars, low-sodium tamari. These can all help bring life to your veggies and move them from bland to bold. Do not underestimate the power of seasoning. A lot of people go way too light on the seasonings, and they miss out on a whole world of flavor. And then think in bowls or one-pot meals. So you might try building what's called a Buddha bowl, where you mix a grain or some beans or both and some veggies, maybe also some raw in there as well, and a great sauce. And this is one of the keys. You want good sauces. So when you get a good sauce, then you can add it to just about anything. There are a lot of options here, but the key is you want to make friends with good recipes. Because when you have good recipes, you can learn to love the foods that will love you back. And there's no reason why healthy eating should be drab or boring or disappointing. You can learn to love healthy foods. And that brings us to our recipes of the day. Each day of this summit, we've got 3 more recipes from Nicole Andrea Russert to help you learn to love healthy eating even more. So number 1 recipe of the day today is Golden Sunrise Smoothie. This is a creamy, energizing blend that's perfect for kickstarting your day. It combines natural sweetness of ripe banana with the richness of gut-nourishing plant-based yogurt, along with rolled oats and fiber, and there's tahini for a hint of nuttiness. It's naturally sweetened with dates and has amazing, super healthy anti-inflammatory spices like turmeric, along with cinnamon and nutmeg and black pepper. And it's delicious. It's a great morning routine or snack option. Next, we have the Napa Szechuan Slaw, which combines crisp nappy cabbage, bell pepper, and cucumber with protein and antioxidant-rich black rice and edamame. Go for organic on that for the reasons we discussed earlier, if you can. It's tossed in a creamy, tangy dressing of almond butter, tamari, and spices, and topped with crunchy almond slivers. It's nutrient-packed, and it's great as a side or a light main dish. And then we've got the tempeh satay, which is a delectable dish. It's a fusion of tempeh and a rich, savory miso peanut sauce. The organic tempeh is marinated and grilled to perfection. It makes a tender and flavorful base. And the miso peanut sauce is made with miso and peanut butter and tamari and rice vinegar and maple syrup and chili paste, ginger and garlic, and it's creamy and tangy and complements the tempeh beautifully. You can garnish if you like with fresh lime wedges, cilantro, and green onions for a burst of freshness and color in this enticing appetizer. Every day of this summit, you'll find the recipes of the day on the broadcast page. And if you like, you can cook along, make one or more of them, and then post in the comments what you think. And let's bring this summit home. It's not just about what we learn. It's about what we do and what we eat. And hopefully these recipes of the day can help make your healthy eating journey more delicious than ever. Gail said, greetings from Gail in Tennessee. I've watched every summit since 2018 and own a few empowerment packages, as well as your books and those written by your dad. Thank you, Ocean, and a special thanks to your dad for his kind and compassionate spirit toward humanity and for his many years of devotion to living the best life, in large part based on healthy growing practices and healthy eating, as well as humanity to our animals and care for our planet. I am 70 years old and a 5-year breast cancer survivor. Our lifestyle choices do matter. Ocean, you and your dad have played a large role in my wellness. Thank you for the food revolution. Gail, thank you for being with us in this journey and for honoring my dad, as do I, and for being a part of this movement with us. Congratulations on being 70 years young and a 5-year breast cancer survivor. And thank you for being here. Kim said, I'm from Bronx, New York. This summit always has good takeaways for me, even when I think I know it all. I will do my best to watch every episode over the next 8 days. Kim, thank you for being here from Bronx, New York. We are so glad you are part of this journey, and we want you to be able to watch every episode over the next 8 days, and we want to make it easier for you to do so you don't miss a thing. So we're going to gift you with an empowerment package. You will now own all the episodes and the transcripts for life, plus all 45 expert interviews. I know you will put it to good use. Spread the word in your community. Apply it in your life. Congratulations and enjoy. Our team will be in touch with you. And congratulations also to our newest empowerment package owners, including Andrea from New York, Angelica from Illinois, Kathy from Kentucky, Ronata from Colorado, Garth from Texas, Murata from Utah, Jerry from Ireland, Ruth from Arkansas, Gail from Canada, James from Michigan, Jennifer from the UK, Marta from Washington, Carrie from California. Thank you all so much. Everybody who is stepping forward, investing in your health, investing in our mission with your empowerment package purchases. And again, there's a link for that right on the broadcast page. So grateful to have you all here. Now, throughout this summit, we have expert interviews available. As you know, there were 45 interviews we conducted, Nicole and I, that went into this year's episodes. And each day of the summit, we share 3 more of them that relate to that day's theme. So today's featured expert interviews are Christopher Gardner, PhD, on Beyond Genetics, what the Twin Study tells us about the optimal diet for humans. Also, Dr. Michael Greger on how not to age, the keys to longevity, gut health, and disease prevention. And Dr. Michael Clapper on longevity and disease prevention, how to transform health at any age. All 3 of these are scintillating, brilliant interviews, and they're all available on the broadcast page, so you can watch them during the replay period anytime you like, for free. And of course, with the empowerment package, you'll own them for life. Catherine said, so much good info, I'll have to rewatch as soon as it's over to pick up the points I missed. Awesome, Catherine. And yes, it will all be available for replay as soon as we finish today's broadcast. You can tune in and watch the replay if you like, anytime until we start tomorrow on the free broadcast page. So folks, we're now approaching the end of day 1 of the Food Revolution Summit docu-series, Healthy People, Healthy Planet. To express your opinions on today's episode and the summit so far, and to find out what others are saying, post and engage in the comment section on the broadcast page. Make sure you refresh the comments using the button you see there so you can see the latest ones. You can also join the conversation on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Food Revolution Network or on Instagram.com/Food Revolution Network. Come on back and join us tomorrow when we go live at 7:45 Pacific Time, 10:45 Eastern, 2:45 p.m. GMT, or at 11 Eastern when we start rolling episode 2. Boosting Brain Health, the science of sharpening your mind and protecting your memory. Tomorrow's episode will rock your world, so please come back and join us. And in the meanwhile, you can post your comments and share in the conversation. You can catch and share the replays right here on this page, right after I'm done live here. You can check out the empowerment package, and you can enjoy our recipes of the day, which you'll find on the replays page. We are wishing you a wonderful, thriving day. This is Ocean Robbins, signing off from day 1 in the Food Revolution Summit. And now here's a peek at what's coming up tomorrow. Alzheimer's, brain fog, and mental health conditions are devastating millions of lives.
When when you lose your memories, you lose everything. And so it's really the most devastating diagnosis, and people tend to spiral downward, and it's a fundamentally isolating experience anyway.
We look at an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure as it relates to Alzheimer's. Even a pound isn't going to cut it. You can get all the pounds you want. There is no cure.
But now, get ready for some really empowering news.
There is a lot of evidence that shows that when you expose yourself to the right kind of lifestyle factors, whether it's diet, exercise, restorative sleep, optimization of cognitive activities, our brain cells are able to make more and more connections, whether we're 9-year-old or 99 years old. It just depends on how we take care of ourselves.
I gotta say, the page completely turned. 2024, Dr. Dean Ornish, who I gotta say has never been afraid to take on a big challenge.
It's hard to change, to reverse a chronic disease. And the reason we were the first to show it in all these different conditions is that most people didn't go far enough. But now we're finding we can give people hope in an area that matters most that nothing else works in. And if it works this well for people who already have early Alzheimer's, it probably works even better to help prevent it.
The drug is a healthy diet and lifestyle. So if a healthy diet works, let's prescribe what we know works.
I think it's pretty clear from the evidence we have that if you take care of your brain, it'll take care of you.
In this episode, we'll uncover what's driving the rise in brain fog, memory loss, and dementia, and how you can take control. From groundbreaking research and lifestyle strategies to the powerful connection between diet, mental health, and sleep, you will discover practical steps to sharpen your mind, boost your mood, and protect your brain for years to come.
At Food Revolution Network, our mission is healthy, ethical, sustainable food for all. We want kids to learn about healthy food in school. We want doctors to learn how nutrition impacts health in medical school. We want the routine use of antibiotics banned from factory farms. We want a world where everyone, regardless of their ethnic or economic background, has knowledge of and access to healthy food for their family. We want a world in which heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, obesity, and diabetes are rare, and in which vibrant health is the norm. We're spreading the word, and we're standing for change. And with every empowerment package purchased, we make a donation to Trees for the Future, so they can plant another organic fruit or nut tree in a low-income community. Join this movement and stand with us for a real food revolution.